Hello and welcome. Today I am going to do a little bit something different. I'm going to go through this article. It's an article that's it's been shared 3.6 million times. Yeah, it's obviously been pretty popular. And yeah, I saw it on Facebook. I saw it shared on Facebook. So it's titled "Reasons Today's Kids Are Bored, Entitled, Impatient, with Few Real Friends." All right, let's see what is so insightful about this particular article. All right, here we go. Victoria Prude finds today's kids come to school emotionally unavailable for learning. There are many factors in our modern lifestyle that contribute to this. Yep. So, again, yes, kids come to school emotionally unavailable for learning at school. This doesn't necessarily mean that they're emotionally unavailable for learning as such. That's quite a big difference. So there might be reasons for why they are emotionally unavailable for learning at school. Maybe they find school really boring. And there's a whole other host of factors that contribute to why it might be boring. Anyway, here we go. She writes, "I'm an occupational therapist with years of experience working with children, parents, and teachers. I completely agree with this teacher's message," I don't know what that message says, but anyway, "that our children are getting worse and worse in many aspects. I hear the same consistent message from every teacher I meet. Clearly, throughout my time as an occupational therapist, I have seen and continue to see a decline in kids' social, emotional, and academic functioning, as well as a sharp increase in learning disabilities and other diagnoses." This is a wee bit hard actually to say, decline in kids' social, emotional, and academic functioning. I think, yeah, in terms of the social and emotional, there are certainly a lot of issues. And again, I guess we need to see why that is. And increase in learning disabilities, yes, as they're defined, there is certainly an increase. Although I do have my issues with the way that people are labelled as having a learning disability. People are often just in terms of on spectrums of sort of things, and often they don't necessarily. Again, if it's learning at school, then yes, it's a learning disability. If it's learning in some other way that it doesn't involve the traditional schooling methods, then possibly they might not have a learning disability. So it depends on what you mean by a learning disability. Can they learn? Most probably yes. Can they learn the way that schools want them to learn? Possibly not. Alright. As we know, the brain is malleable. Through environment, we can make the brain stronger or make it weaker. Okay. Not quite sure about that, but anyway, we'll move on. "I truly believe that, despite all our greatest intentions, we unfortunately remold our children's brains in the wrong direction. And here is why." This is a wee bit. What do you mean by the wrong direction? What's the right direction? So anyway, okay, here is why. I'm not quite sure what she's meaning by that sentence, but we'll move on. Technology. Okay. "Using technology as a free babysitting service is in fact not free at all. The payment is waiting for you just around the corner. We pay with our kids' nervous systems, with their attention, and with their ability for delayed gratification. Compared to virtual reality, everyday life is boring." I think, again, that's that's pretty relative. In terms of, yes, maybe most kids' everyday life is boring compared to the virtual reality. And that just might be a fact. But why? It's not. They weren't the one who chose often that environment. Kids don't generally have choices about where they live and often even what they get to do exactly. They have to go to school, or when they'd rather be playing outside or whatever. So in terms of, yeah, they're being told and shelled around by adults all the time. So possibly, yeah, and they find a lot of things that adults are making them do to be boring, and so life is kind of boring. And video games, and I've written an article about this as well. Is video games and virtual reality give a chance often for children to actually make their own decisions, make their own choices, which they rarely get to have in their everyday life. And so, in fact, virtual reality and video games can be of great benefit to many children, because it's the one place where they can actually make real choices and make real decisions. Well, in a virtual sort of sense, actually, but where they can make sorry, not real decisions, where they can make decisions, and there are effects from their actions depending on their decisions. They might either lose the game or they win the game. There are consequences for their decisions, but they are actually the ones making those decisions, which is something that's really, really important to children. And so, yes, I think that's one of the major aspects of why virtual reality is so enticing for children, because they actually have a real chance to make choices, and to not only just make choices, but to actually bear out the natural consequences of those choices. Okay. When kids come to the classroom, they are exposed to human voices and adequate visual stimulation, as opposed to being bombarded with graphic explosions and special effects that they are used to seeing on the screens. After hours of virtual reality, processing information in a classroom becomes increasingly challenging for our kids, because their brains are getting used to the high levels of stimulation that video games provide. The inability to process lower levels of stimulation leaves kids vulnerable to academic challenges. Technology also disconnects us emotionally from our children and our families. Again, I think, high levels of stimulation. Well, no, I mean, the way that humans function, our highest levels of stimulation come about when we are actually connecting with other people. So that's when our dopamine centers light up in the conversations that we have with other people. And so in terms of they are getting these levels of stimulation from video games, because they're probably not getting it in real life. Yes, they're exposed to human voices, but I mean, if the human voices are just telling them what to do all the time, and then that's not an exciting life. We want to be able to make choices. We want to be able to do things. We want to be able to do real, meaningful things that have real consequences. And so, yeah, in terms of, I think, video games and virtual reality give children the opportunity to actually live a more real life. And in terms of, but that doesn't necessarily need to be the case. I think, and this has been shown that children will happily leave video games behind if they can really connect with other people, and they get time with other people, and they have that really one-on-one interaction with other people, or within a group of people. We are really social beings, and video games is not going to kick that out of us. Our social needs is not going to be replaced by some flashy lights in a video game. That's not how it works. Our social instincts are by far more important to us as human beings, and this is instinctual to children as well. But yes, it brings into question why is their social connection so low. And it kind of goes into this over here, actually. Parental emotional availability is the main nutrient for a child's brain. Unfortunately, we are gradually depriving our children of that nutrient. Alright, so there we go. So it's not, it doesn't actually have anything to do with technology, really. Technology isn't the problem. It's parental emotional unavailability. And yeah, so it's interesting that, but yes, humans, if we like to say that the problem is technology, because then we can, we can avoid the uncomfortable questions about ourselves. Kids get everything the moment they want it. I'm hungry. In a second I will stop at the drive-thru. I'm thirsty. Here is a vending machine. I'm bored. Use my phone. The ability to delay gratification is one of the key factors for future success. We have the best intentions to make our children happy, but unfortunately we make them happy at the moment, but miserable in the long term. To be able to delay gratification means to be able to function under stress. Our children are gradually becoming less equipped to deal with even minor stresses, which eventually become huge obstacles to their success in life. The inability to delay gratification is often seen in classrooms, malls, restaurants, and toy stores the moment the child hears no, because parents have taught their child's brain to get what it wants right away. Yeah, there's some interesting things here. So, yes, delay of gratification is an important thing as human beings, and if we can employ that, that becomes a really important part in our life. But, as such, again, that needs to be modelled by parents. And I was reading about this actually this morning, this whole, where, yes, as a society, we often went too much of being strict and authoritarian towards children, to this sort of more modern mindset, we are flipping the tables and we're allowing children to be authoritarian on us. And both situations aren't good. So it doesn't mean going back to the old ways. It means actually figuring out that authoritarianism going either way is not good. In fact, when all ever somebody hears is a yes man, it makes people feel very lonely. And this would be the same thing if you're a boss or whatever. Like, if you have someone who constantly just keeps on saying yes to you, you realize that that person doesn't really have a relationship with you. If they can't disagree with you, then you don't have that relationship, and you actually start feeling very, very lonely. And so this is actually what tends to happen with a lot of children, is that if their parents are just being yes men, so to speak, then they tend to become very lonely. But I want to have a look at these examples that this author has put up here. So they say, "I am hungry." Again, that's the statement that the child is making. "I am hungry." And there's nothing wrong with that statement. In terms of, like, what should the response be? "I don't care, you're going to have to wait." Again, like, we should be taking that into account. They're making that statement to let us know. In a second I will stop at the drive-thru. I don't know, maybe you are hungry too. That's the thing, like, if you're kind of feeling hungry, but you're like, "Oh, I'll just wait until maybe we get home," but there is there's a Macca's over there, and it's a long way to home, and it will be great to get some food, but then you're like, "Oh, well, maybe it's just me." But if your child says, "I'm hungry," and then you're like, "Oh, thank you, oh, awesome, there's another person who's also hungry. In fact, we're both hungry, so let's go through the drive-thru." But again, or you might say, the child might say, "I'm hungry," and you might say, "Well, it's 10 minutes till home, and then we can have some food there." Like, that's what I would prefer. What do you think? And then you can actually have a discussion in terms of, the child has simply made a statement. You've made a statement stating what your preference is, and you've given the child an opportunity to cooperate with you, a chance to say yes or no. Instead of overriding that, or instead of just folding to that, you've actually given an opportunity to cooperate. And I think that's actually the important thing. Same with "I am thirsty." If they are thirsty, then that might be a problem in terms of, okay, if you're not going to go past, like, if you're in the middle, if you're maybe just about to go for a walk and they say they're really thirsty and they don't have a drink bottle, then maybe, yeah, it's a good idea to stop at a vending machine and maybe get some drink before you go on the long walk. But yes, you don't necessarily, again, you could say, the child might say, "I'm thirsty," and then you could say, "Oh, are you? Well, what could we do about that? Do you have your drink bottle with you?" "No, I don't have my drink bottle." "Well, I'd really like to get going, and we should get back home in about 5 minutes, so, maybe we can do that." But maybe it is for a longer time, and you say, "Oh, well, we're going to be gone for another hour. Yeah, maybe it would be a good idea if we get a drink from the vending machine, and that'll quench your thirst." I mean, saying "I'm thirsty" is a legitimate thing that somebody might say. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. No, you don't need to just straight away go and buy something. State your preferences, and allow them to interact with those preferences that you have. Alright. Cool. Let's move on to the next one. Kids rule the world. My son doesn't like vegetables. She doesn't like going to bed early. He doesn't like to eat breakfast. She doesn't like toys, but she is very good at her iPad. He doesn't want to get dressed on his own. She is too lazy to eat on her own. Okay, these are all sort of statements. I mean, they're not dictating any. This is what I hear from parents all the time. Since when do children dictate to us how to parent them? What do you mean? My son doesn't like vegetables. Maybe he doesn't. That's just a statement of fact. She doesn't like going to bed early. Again, they're not telling you how to parent them. They're just saying that they don't like to go to bed early. He doesn't like to eat breakfast. Okay, that's a preference that the child has. Again, it's not something. If we leave it all up to them, all they're going to do is eat macaroni and cheese and bagels with cream cheese, watch TV, play on their tablets, and never go to bed. She doesn't like toys, but she is very good at her iPad. Maybe she doesn't like toys. So maybe don't try giving her a whole lot of toys. Maybe she is very good at her iPad. She's too lazy to eat on her own. Well, that's just projecting, really. he doesn't want to get dressed on his own. Well, yeah, maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's not ready for that. Maybe he wants that interaction with you. Maybe he misses that. Maybe he wants you there still, helping him dress, and likes that bonding time that you have together when you're dressing him. Eventually he'll want to do it on his own. But yeah. What good... Oh, here we go. Carry on. What good are we doing them by giving them what they want when we know that it is not good for them? Yeah, like, so, alright. Without proper nutrition and a good night's sleep, our kids come to school irritable, anxious, and inattentive. In addition, we send them the wrong message. Alright, so yes, obviously, like, the kids need good nutrition and those sorts of things. And, but the statement, I don't like vegetables, that's something, okay, well, in terms of you can speak to your son and possibly, say, well, we need some sort of thing. What's a vegetable maybe that you do like? And maybe we could cook that, or and again, state your preferences. Well, I really enjoy vegetables, so we're going to have. I really want to cook vegetables as well. What do you think we could? I really want vegetables for dinner. You don't. You don't really like vegetables. Is there something that we can do? What can we do to figure this out? And again, you can have those conversations, and that's that's the key thing. That's the biggest thing that you can do with your children, is to actually have conversations with them, to work through these moments where there's conflicts and desires that people want. And that's kind of what it's all about. Is it's not about caving into somebody. It's not about lording it over somebody. It's about coming together and stating your preferences, stating your desires, taking both of those aside seriously, and then coming up with a solution. Our kids come to school irritable, anxious, and inattentive. Again, this is, why do kids need to get up so early for school? This isn't a good thing. Yeah, and especially, there's plenty of studies on teenagers that, in fact, the way that their bodies are kind of wired, they tend to, their bodies want to sleep in later. And we kind of force them to get up early and go to school, and supposedly that's not actually so healthy. So, yeah, they're irritable partially because, especially when it comes to teenagers, their body clocks are kind of wired to go to bed later and wake up later as well. So, yeah, they're going to be, and they're not going to get enough sleep, and they are going to be irritable. But again, it's, they didn't decide that the school was a great idea that they wanted to do. It's again something that parents came up with, and so they learn they can do what they want and not do what they don't want. Well, I think it's a good thing to learn to not do what you don't want to do. I think we need to be able to learn to say no when we don't want to do something, and I think that's a really important skill to learn, is we need to be able to say no. The concept of need to do is absent. Unfortunately, in order to achieve our goals in our lives, we have to do what's necessary, which may not always be what we want to do. For example, if a child wants to be an A student, he needs to study hard. Yeah, okay. Depends on who's wanting it. Sometimes there's things that we don't really want to do, and we try and figure out a way of doing those things in a way that we realise we kind of still need to do them, and so we try to do them in a more comfortable way, in a more fun way, whatever it might be, and or in a more purposeful way, and so we end up doing them anyway. I guess the problem is, if they don't want to do it, and somebody else forces them, and this is kind of the problem that I had with that statement. So, our children know very well what they want, but have a very hard time doing what is necessary to achieve that goal. This results in unattainable goals and leaves the kids disappointed. What is necessary to achieve that goal? A lot of the times, children are kind of, a lot of these dreams that, like, for instance, becoming an A student, where did that dream come from? Was that kind of pushed by the parents? So again, I won't say too much more about that at the moment. Endless fun. Yes. We have created an artificial fun world for our children. There are no dull moments. The moment it becomes quiet, we run to entertain them again, because otherwise we feel that we are not doing our parenting duty. We live in two separate worlds. They have their fun world and we have our work world. Why aren't children helping us in the kitchen or with laundry? Why don't they tidy up their toys? This is basic monotonous work that trains the brain to be workable and function under boredom, which is the same muscle that is required to be eventually teachable at school. When they come to school and it is time for handwriting, their answer is, I can't. It is too hard, too boring. Why? Because the workable muscle is not getting trained through endless fun. It gets trained through work. In order to work, we need to be doing those things that are actually enjoyable, and we get better at those things which are actually enjoyable. So we have created an artificial fun world for our children. Again, like they stated earlier, the key problem is that parents are emotionally unavailable. So yes, we run to entertain them again. Why are you not entertaining them with yourself? You're seeking to entertain them with other things. And, what's that, the Christmas song? All I want for Christmas is you. And, it's the same thing with kids. At the end of the day, what they want is you, not all your entertainment stuff. So stop running to entertain them, and just actually your parenting duty is to actually be there and interact with them. So interact with them, and you can interact with them in all sorts of ways. You can interact with them while you're doing laundry as well, and in fact that will make the laundry much more exciting. Doing monotonous work that trains the brain to be workable and function under boredom. Required to eventually teachable at school. Well, that's just kind of obedience training 101, isn't it? You're saying, I don't really care if this is boring or whether it's useful even to you. What I want you to do is I want you to react in an obedient manner so that you will continue to do what I say and continue to do the tasks that I set you. Instead of actually, these things are boring. I don't know, handwriting can be boring. At certain stages, like kids will practice their handwriting and they'll do so freely because they're really enjoying it. But if you make them do it, as soon as people force you to do something, it eventually becomes boring and it loses its meaning. And you can kind of knock obedience kind of into them. Again, they're just going to become resentful and all those sorts of things. But yeah, all this is it's telling us is that you want to try and get them to be obedient. And no, actually, we become more workable. Our workable muscle, so to speak, I don't know if we've got that, is trained through endless fun. Yes, in fact, it's when we're enjoying ourselves that we learn the most. We get dopamine flowing through our body, our myelin, also in our brains, helps neuro connections and all those sorts of things. When we're having fun and we're enjoying ourselves and we're connecting with other people. So, yeah. So, in fact, yes, we are trained through endless fun. So, be that. There we go. Solved that one. Limited social interaction. We are all busy. So we give our kids digital gadgets and make them busy too. Yeah, that's not good. Kids used to play outside where in unstructured natural environments they learn and practice their social skills. Okay, now you're saying that they should have lots of play, and they should. Unfortunately, technology replaced the outdoor time. Also, technology made the parents less available to socially interact with their kids. Obviously, our kids fall behind. The babysitting gadget is not equipped to help kids develop social skills. This is correct. Most successful people have great social skills. This is a priority. Alright, then spend time with your kids. And allow them the opportunities to actually be social. Like kids spend all day at school, and when school finishes, they're carted around to adult organised activities such as soccer practices, piano practices, all sorts of things like that. And they don't have time to run around the neighbourhood and actually play with their friends. So, yeah, and then often, it depends what country you're in, it gets dark maybe early, who are you going to interact with? Well, and your parents and your other family members are too absorbed in their own sort of thing, and they're too busy. They're going to go to technology, because at least there's something to do with that. I don't see what the problem is. Like, they're just trying to cope with the environment that they've been placed in. If you want kids to have more social interaction, again, that is up to you. And, be more involved in their lives. Allow them the opportunity to have more social interaction. Maybe move to a neighbourhood where people actually where there's other parents, get to know other parents, have social interactions with them, and introduce families to each other so that kids can have those times, more time to play together. Very good. The brain is just like a muscle that is trainable and retrainable. If you want your child to be able to bike, you teach him biking skills. If you want your child to be able to wait, you need to teach him patience. If you want your child to be able to socialise, you need to teach him social skills. Same applies to all the other skills. There is no difference. No. I don't really like the word teach. And certainly, what does this mean? You need to teach him patience. How are you going to do that? I'd really like a practical way of how you are going to do that doesn't involve a force and manipulation. If you want, and with all these things, yes, I mean, you show your child skills when they're biking, but it's not if you want your child to be able to bike. You don't teach them biking skills. If your child wants to learn to bike, you can show them the skills to go biking. I mean, this is how I taught my nephew to bike the other year, and it wasn't, firstly, it was him who wanted to bike. He came to me and he said, I want to learn to ride the bike, Uncle Eustace. And so I gave him some tips along the way, but it was him who did the biking. It wasn't me teaching him. I gave him tips, but it was him practicing things, trying different things, and then me giving suggestions along the way. But again, it's not if you want your child to be able to bike. If you want your child to be able to bike, then bike around, show how much fun it is. Again, that's how my nephew wanted to learn, because he saw all his siblings biking, and he saw, I won't go into the whole story there, but basically it's because he had the desire, because the people around him were also able to bike, and so he wanted to bike too. So if you want your child to be able to bike around, you and your family bike around until he wants to be able to do that too. And then help him when he wants to do that. Alright. Train the brain. Yo, this is turning into quite the long video. Alright, train the brain. You can make a difference in your child's life by training your child's brain so that your child will successfully function on social, emotional, and academic levels. Here is how. Limit technology and reconnect with your kids emotionally. Surprise them with flowers, share it, smile, tickle them, put a love note in their backpack or under their pillow. Surprise them by taking them out for lunch, on a school day, dance together, crawl together, have pillow fights. Have family dinners, board game nights, say the list of my favourite board games, go biking, go to outdoor walks with a flashlight in the evening. Man, yeah, all of these are awesome. Yeah, they're cool stuff. Absolutely. Reconnect with your kids emotionally and do those things. I think that's a fantastic idea. Again, I'm not... I don't like the necessarily limit technology thing. It's not about limiting technology. It's about giving them something better. They'll limit technology on their own. Reconnect with your kids. Where social beings will actually gravitate more to those social interactions than we will to technology. And you'll find that. I know people who have gone that way of simply aiming to reconnect with their kids, and they've noticed that their kids actually end up limiting technology all by themselves. So, train delayed gratification. Make them wait. It is okay to have I am bored time. This is the first step to creativity. Gradually increase the waiting time between I want and I get. No! No. Alright, so gradually increase the waiting time between I want and I get. What's that supposed to mean? As in, like, if they whine and complain about it for long enough, that you'll eventually give in. Make them wait. No, it's not. It's about being honest. It's about saying, no, I don't want to do that, or yes, I do want to do that. It's about coming... It's not about some arbitrary wait time. It's about having a conversation with them. Yeah. If they're bored, then yeah, just well, what can you do while you're bored? I mean, if you're standing there and you're bored, are you bored as well? Like, if you're both bored, then do something exciting together. Even if you're standing in line, like, have a conversation. Like I said, avoid technology use in cars and restaurants. Instead, teach them waiting while talking and playing games. Yeah, exactly. So if you're standing in a line or whatever, or you're waiting for your meal in your restaurant, yeah, don't just sit there silently or be on your phone and then realise that your kids are bored. Yeah, talk with them, do some games. Yeah, there's lots of things that you can do. Don't be afraid to set the limits. Kids need limits to grow happy and healthy. Make a schedule for meal times, sleep times, technology time. I don't know about the whole schedule times, but you can certainly state your preferences for instance, you can state your preferences when you would like to have a meal, and say, this is when I'm cooking for Again, those can be negotiated, but yep, certainly state your preferences and state them clearly. Think of what is good for them, not what they want, don't want. No, do think of what they want and don't want. Take their preferences into account. They're going to thank you for that later on in life. Parenting is a hard job. You need to be creative to make them do what is good for them, because most of the time that is the exact opposite of what they want. No, don't be manipulative. It's not about making them do what you want to do, what you want them to do. That's just being manipulative. It's about taking your considerations into stating your preferences. It's about listening to their preferences and then having a conversation together to come up with the best solution. Okay, and maybe, and listening to their preferences, because maybe their preference is quite a good one. And being open and humble enough to actually understand that might be the case. Okay. Kids need breakfast and nutritious food. They need to spend time outdoor and go to bed at a consistent time in order to come to school available for learning the next day. I think they need nutritious food. They need to spend time outdoors. Consistent time, again, I've talked about that. Well, if you're doing school, that's kind of one of the issues, and I don't envy people doing that. Alright. Convert things that they don't like doing, trying into fun, emotionally stimulating games. Again, don't do it manipulatively, but if you're folding laundry, tidying up toys, hanging clothes, packing groceries, again, you can do that in a fun way. Again, engage them socially, so have conversations with them. Be creative. Initially make it stimulating and fun so that their brain associates it with something positive. Again, are you doing this in a manipulative sense, or are you doing it genuinely because you want to spend time with your kids and you are going to fold the laundry anyway? And so if you're going to be folding the laundry anyway and you want to spend time with your children, you can certainly ask them to help you, and don't bore yourself, Your child's there, you might as well have an interesting conversation with them. So if you don't want to be bored by simply doing the laundry by yourself, then maybe you could ask your child to help you, and in so doing you could maybe have an interesting and stimulating conversation, or whatever it might be. So, teach social skills. Teach them turn taking, sharing, losing, winning, compromising, complimenting others, using please and thank you. From my experience as an occupational therapist, children change the moment parents change their perspective on parenting. I like that last bit. Help your kids succeed in life by training and strengthening their brains sooner rather than later. Alright, so teach them turn taking, sharing, losing, winning, using please and thank you. Let's make a couple of comments about using please and thank you, and I'm guessing also tell them you're sorry, I'm sorry. That's not actually helpful, because it's just teaching kids to use a formula as such. The way that you get people to use words like please and thank you genuinely is by using them genuinely, and instead of forcing children to use these words, just allow them to pick them up as a natural part of their language. Children copy the language of their parents, and so if you're using please and thank you, children will begin to understand where to use those words and what context to use those words, and then be able to use those genuinely if you are using them genuinely as well. Teach them turn taking, sharing, losing, winning. So I'm going to share a little bit of story to end this up, and this is a story that came from Jesper Juhl in his book Raising Competent Children, which I was reading again this morning. So he shares a story of a little boy, and he's playing with Legos, and he's building something, and along comes his sister, and his sister looks at what he's doing with the Legos, and then eventually she wants to play, and she plays kind of in a way that is really annoying to the boy, and eventually he gets so frustrated at her that he ends up hitting her. And so she runs to the mother, and then, and says, my brother hit me. And then the mother comes back, and then he just plays basically two scenarios. So the first scenario is where the mother would say, Kevin, say the boy's name was Kevin, as it was in the story, Kevin, you are not allowed to hit your sister. Let's say her name was Lucy. You are not allowed to hit Lucy. And maybe we can figure out a way for you to play nicely with your sister. And while that is kind of well-meaning, at the end of the day, this doesn't actually, this doesn't take into account who Kevin is. It basically just overrides his will, in terms of he was playing by himself, and then his sister came along, and he didn't want her to necessarily play, and eventually she, I guess, escalated things and got into his space so much that he retaliated with some force. And this isn't necessarily an overly bad thing, is it? In terms of we want children to be able to say no. Obviously, we don't want things to escalate into violence, though. But saying that it was a wrong for him to hit, just puts all the focus on his error, basically. And then saying, you have to play with your sister, and let's figure out a way that you want to play with your sister. Again, that's overriding his desire. So what if the mother instead said, might put her arm around Lucy and comfort Lucy and say, Kevin, I realise you want to play by yourself, so what are some ways that we can think of that you can, when you want to play by yourself in future, what can you do so that things don't escalate, and so that you end up hitting your sister? And that's a far different way of looking at it. It's realising, what Kevin let things basically get out of hand in the situation because he didn't know what to do, and so that's the way he eventually lashed out. But it takes into account that things can be actually done in future, that and it allows Kevin to actually then make some decisions about how to actually react in future, because none of us like escalating things where we end up lashing out and hitting other people. And so, that's, again, he'd rather play. So in those moments where he wants to play by himself, what can he actually do to make sure that he continues playing by himself? And there's various things that he can do, and you can have a conversation about that. And that's actually a lot more helpful than just saying that Kevin is bad and he needs to share with his sister. So yeah, to finish up, what are my final thoughts on this article? Yeah, I mean, there's certainly some good things in here, that crop up every now and again, like, children change the moment parents change their perspective on parenting. I think that's like said at the end there. And then even there's some really awesome parts as well, like these ways of reconnecting with your kids emotionally. I think they're great, they're wonderful. I think there's a tendency to, I guess, blame certain outside factors for some of the breakdown. Like, for instance, there's a big emphasis on technology being one of the things that separates people, and that is causing this. At the end of the day, it's not the technology in and of itself. This is sort of like people saying that that a gambling machine causes a dysfunction in someone's life. No, the dysfunction is already there. It's just that like someone going and gambling, it allows them to get certain dopamine hits, and it turns that dysfunction into, well, it gives it basically a direction and a way for it to be visible. But somebody having a gambling addiction, I mean, yeah, this is just the same thing with here. It's not the technology in and of itself that is the problem. It is the way that the dysfunction that is already in the family, which then allows the technology to take such a large part of the child's life that exactly there is social isolation, possibly, and other things that go on. And yeah, it basically allows the kids to cope with the family breakdown that is already there. So at the end of the day, I don't think that technology is a cause of family breakdown. It can be something that children will turn to because of that family breakdown is already there. So, and again, yeah, I have a problem with the whole teaching idea. I'm more in terms of modelling and showing what you want, not using manipulation to get children to do what you want them to do. But yeah, so those are some of my thoughts regarding that. I won't re-explain everything once again, but this is my first time doing a video like this, and if you enjoyed it, do let me know. But yeah, we'll see if I do another one like this. This took quite a wee while to do, and it was quite long, but yeah, it was interesting nonetheless. Alright, thanks a lot. Cheers. Bye.